If you have a wedding or a special event coming up, having a quality falcon can really mean elevating and personalising that event. So today's tutorial is around making a black acrylic menu card for our pretend wedding. It's done with a pink and gold coloured infill so that it really shows off the theme of the day, as well as a name place card holder, which is also made out of black acrylic. So I'm going to show you how I'm going to make those. I'm going to be using the 22 watt power on the Falcon Pro 60 watt laser, which I have here beside me. So let's get into it and I'll show you all my tips and tricks. Here in Lightburn, we have our wedding menu, which is bride and groom's name at the top and then the wedding menu in the dark green there. I've set that to fill. I'll be using the 22 watt laser mode and I will be using the speed of 3800 and the power of 40%. Now if I go and double click this layer, you can see that I've actually chosen overscanning of 5%. The reason being is we want that really crisp engrave on the lettering. We don't want there to be soft edges on the first and the last letter of each line. So I've set that overscan to 5% and I've used line per inch of 254. Now I will be over focusing this, so I'll be using the focusing tool and then actually lifting the laser head another 1 to 2 millimeters even higher so that I don't get grooves in this engrave. And that will really mean that the paint infill will be nice and smooth and beautiful. As you can see around the edge of the menu, I've got the red cut line. Again, I'll be using the 22 watt power mode on the Falcon Pro, so I've set that to 100 speed, 100 power. And I've also got a name at the bottom so that you can see a wedding table set up with not only the menu but also place cards. If you've seen any of my previous tutorials on cutting acrylic, you'll see that I have removed the honeycomb rails that are in between the edges of the piece of acrylic. Now the reason is I've put some little timber offcuts behind the corners of the acrylic, and that's just to raise the acrylic off of the honeycomb bed. So whether you're using rails or a bed, just raise that acrylic up and it will prevent flashback, which is when the laser beam hits the honeycomb bed, it bounces back and it takes a little chunk out of the back of your acrylic. So this just means that you'll get a really nice clean cut. So I think we're ready to go ahead and engrave and cut our menu. As you can see, the piece is out of the laser now, and where the paper coating has burnt away, the engrave is looking very, very nice and smooth. What I suggest is taking a paintbrush or even canned or compressed air and just cleaning out the engrave. The reason I do this is just so I can inspect it up close. Now, if you have very deep grooves in your engrave, if, for example, you haven't raised that laser head just a little bit more than you would for a normal engrave, then I would suggest that whilst it is still got its paper covering on it, to coat it with a spray lacquer, just a sheer coat, just so that you are filling up some of these deep engraves. Now, I don't really have those deep engraves, so there's two ways I can proceed from here. First is to basically do it like a screen print and paint over the top of this paper and then remove the paper backing. Or alternatively, I can peel that back and use a screen printing style method to fill it as I go and then clean it up with alcohol. For this one, I'm going to choose the second method because I have lost a little bit of paper just on the centers of a couple of the small letters. So I think it will be an easier cleanup if I just remove that paper backing. Please be careful if you are using any metal tweezers or metal instruments not to scratch the very shiny finish of that acrylic. As you can see, all of the protective paper coating is now off. The engrave is looking very, very neat. So what I'm going to go do now is to infill that text area with 2 different coloured paints so I can keep it to our pretend wedding theme. I'm going to actually use a screen printing type of process, just using acrylic paint and a piece of cardboard. So no expensive tools needed. Now I'm actually doing it from a couple of different directions just so I fill up the depth of each of the letters so that there's no air bubbles. So I've just changed over the shade of the pink paint because I've changed to a thicker consistency of paint. I was using more of a poster paint because it was a very bright color, but I've changed to these smaller, more artist style paints because they are a thicker consistency and they just dry and clean up a lot easier. So I'm just going to finish cleaning this one up and then we can see the finished result. Thanks so much for watching. I hope you got a lot out of the tutorial and that you've got the chance to personalize your own special events. Until next time, I'm Heidi. I'm the Crafty Socialite on social media. Thank you to Creality Falcon for sponsoring this tutorial, and I'll see you next time.